Concert pianist, composer, and conductor David Geist has enjoyed a colorful career working on the biggest Broadway shows with the biggest Broadway stars. And now, this remarkable artist is entertaining Santa Fe audiences at the Geist Cabaret at Pranzo Italian Grill. And I am fortunate enough to have David in the studio with us this morning. David, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. Well,
Thanks.
You've worked on some amazing shows here. Let's see, we've got credits such as Cats, Les Miserables, The Lion King, Wicked. So what is it like to be part of entertainment history?
Well, you do feel very privileged and honored. It's a very viable art form that happens, particularly in New York, and I was able to be very immersed and totally absorbed in it. And there's people that really take it as serious as anything else. I mean, people think Broadway is like, a bunch of, people sitting around a piano bar shouting out show tunes, but it's a really viable art form, and I got to really see it up close, and I feel very privileged to have had that inside track to it.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, musical theater, when it is done right, it can be just transcendental as an art form.
Absolutely. I mean, there's people there that, like I said, they spend their whole lives really mastering it and, writing these musicals, and I got to be in the room with some really great people, and and now I get to sort of share that with at this wonderful cabaret room up in Santa Fe.
Right, which we're going to talk about.
Okay.
But first, I'm really curious. You performed with some legends. So who are some of the biggest names that you've performed with and coached? And what is it like to be giving coaching to some of these world-renowned artists?
Well, you learn so much about their process, and from their process, I've learned to integrate it into my musical process as well. But I got to work with Hugh Jackman on Boy from Oz, and he couldn't have been more gracious. I mean, just a nicest guy, in the world. And I mean that. He treats everybody with equal amount of respect.
That's great.
I worked with Betty Buckley, the original Grisabella on Cats. Rita Moreno, she's actually won the Emmy, the Tony, the Oscar, and the Grammy, from West Side Story. Just some wonderful people. I just did a show up in Santa Fe with Lilia Montevecchi and Kay Ballard, and you learn so much from each person's background, and you're able to take a little bit of that and infuse it into your own work.
Well, that's great. Well, so what kind of music can we hear at the Geist Cabaret?
Well, I take pride in really preserving the American Songbook, which is music from the first part of the 20th century, music up until, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the golden age of Broadway musicals, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Gershwin, Cole Porter, and such. But I love music from the movies as well, and pop music as well. It's the idea of finding great music that you can represent through the piano and through the voice. And sometimes I get comments from people like, wow, I never thought, that music was so good until I heard it through the piano and the way that you presented it. So, it's a great opportunity to just celebrate wonderful music that's worthy of having attention brought to it.
Right, and and I think that it's great, as you mentioned, preserving the American Songbook. In your opinion, why is it important to preserve that?
Well, I will say, I think it is a unique part of American culture. I mean, we're the big exports of pop culture, but I will say jazz and Broadway are the two things that we really do offer the world stage. And, I'm a 21st century guy. I'm from this culture. It's like, these are my people, this is my music, and I feel very strongly about preserving it. And I do think it's vanishing. There's not a lot of people that do it anymore. I mean, Tony Bennett is sort of one of the last few singers from that world. And like I said, I just worked with Kay Ballard, and it's a vanishing tradition, and I feel very strongly about preserving it because it's a unique part of our culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Totally.
Now, for folks that have not been to Pranzo, and I have to admit I have yet to experience Pranzo, what is the atmosphere like?
It is absolutely gorgeous, and it's romantic, and it's fun, and it's lighthearted. We have this. I conceived this room with this wonderful owner, Michael O'Reilly, and we decided let's put a cabaret room upstairs on the second story, and it's this beautiful. It's like being in a tree house, and there's a grand piano up there, and people sit and they eat wonderful Mediterranean Italian food, great wine, and it really is. I think it's probably one of the most beautiful places you could ever possibly want to come to. It really is. It's the music and the entire atmosphere is really just, I can't say enough about it.
That's great. Well, so now when are you going to be at Pranzo, and how can our viewers learn more about you and the cabaret?
Well, I'm there every Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
And the Pranzo Italian Grill is in the Sambusco Center, right off of Montezuma and Guadalupe. But you can go to pranzosantafe.com and go on the website. My schedule's there. You can, get directions on how to get there. But once again, Pranzo Italian Grill upstairs. We call it Geist Cabaret, and it's a wonderful musical It's like being in a living room. People that come there, they feel like they've, walked into this sort of New York cabaret atmosphere, but almost like being in a living room as well too. It's really a very
Great.
It's a very homey atmosphere.
Great. Well, David, such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much, Chad. Great to be here.
Absolutely.